Hello, gentlemen, and welcome to the Mental Dojo with yours truly, Dennis Procopio. I'm a life coach for men. I own Man Up Life Coaching in San Diego, California. I work with dudes here in the United States and internationally, talking about guy stuff, guy problems, things that are on your mind, things that are on your heart. And today we're going to be talking about yet another grueling, uncomfortable, awkward bro topic. So join me inside. I promise it will not disappoint. See you there. All right, guys. So we're on. Here's the deal. The Mental Dojo is a space in which I, as a coach and owner of Man Up Life Coaching, interact with an audience of people who are either in the Man Up Life Coaching culture and looking for to hear more stories from different guys, or they're looking for me to share coaching insights, or I'm projecting to an audience who are like, what's Man Up Life Coaching? What's this all about? And so for some people, this will be their first foray. Like, what is this? So I'm letting you know before we get started, I am inviting you as members of the Man Up Life Coaching community to come and discuss a topic. I am privy to information about your private lives that I definitely do not want to throw out there without your permission. So if I get too deep, feel free to dial me in. If I ask a question that's too personal for TV, so to speak, let me know. My feelings won't be hurt, but otherwise, let's go hard and let's try to have basically a nice hour. I'm going to flip this hourglass. Tops, half hour to hour chat. And I'd like to explore the subject because in the personal relatability department, a lot of guys can relate to the subject of loving your job or not and fitting in with your job culture or not. So that's where we're going. Everybody in? All right. Cool. Don't make me do all the talking, please. I'm going to be an interviewer, not do a TED Talk with you guys sitting here watching me. So let's all talk. So first, let's just do introductions. Steve Summerfield, Renan Cretu, your names are both on the screen. So that's who you are. Describe who you are. I'm going to start with Steve. Describe who you are. Describe your relationship with me and Man Up Life Coaching as far as you're comfortable sharing. And when you're done, hand the mic over to Renan. He'll do the same thing. And then we'll get into topic. Cool?
Yeah.
Right.
So our relationship with Dennis, it was some personal issues that were, I think, exacerbated by maybe my mental thought processes, both at work and private life. And really, I was looking for the deep fix. I've always found through higher, like through sports, through my job, my career field, I've always found like ways to kind of piece some of that together, but not really keep it forever. So that's kind of been our process, I think, is really digging deep and changing all those things and accepting who I am for the best. What else would you like to know, Dennis?
When you say personal problems, without going, going just as deep as you want to go, how would you make that relatable to somebody who might also have problems without, feeling like you're putting your business out there on the street?
Yeah. So there's multiple layers to my personal problems. They're, both relationship with women, with friends, with coworkers. My field is very tight-knit group, or it's supposed to be. Those guys are supposed to have your back in, potential life and death matters.
Your field. We'll just say what your field is so we're not guessing.
I'm a firefighter paramedic. It's my full-time. I teach high school. I teach college. I teach at the State Fire Academy as well. There have been multiple layers and multiple instances where this has been an issue to work through. And me myself, like I believe I don't want to say a higher level than the average person, but I definitely do things that are not the norm. So kind of being comfortable with that, I think about like someone like maybe one I like to think of is like Elon Musk. And, for the longest time, 10 years or so, everyone was telling him, you can't do this or you can't do that, or everyone was doubting him, high level people who knew what they were talking about. And then, one day things changed and he's, one of the richest guys in the world. So I kind of look at that and, stay the course. That's kind of been a topic I think maybe you Dennis and I haven't talked about, but for me it's been a topic, trusting myself rather than getting caught up in some of the bullshit and some of the problems in life and in work and in relationships and stuff like that.
Yeah, that says it all. That's cool. All right, so that's Steve Summerfield, and where you're in rural Chicago, rural in Illinois, outside Chicago, right?
Yeah, rural Illinois. Yep.
Okay. Renan, your turn.
Yeah, so I'm Renan Pritu. I'm 31. I'm up in Boston currently, back home living with my folks, actually, where I grew up. Started working with Dennis back in October 2019, and kind of primary areas being most immediately is employment, getting a new job, a job at all really, but also something ideally fulfilling, with kind of a backdrop, a larger theme of trying to figure out what my purpose is and what I want to do with my life, and what's it all about, etc. Kind of some of that existential stuff. And over the last 10 months or so, we've progressed and kind of narrowed things down to looking at sales, particularly technical sales, in terms of the job, and been kind of doing a lot of the legwork that's involved with that, and I'm at a kind of sticking point now. So with just really getting my applications out there, so that's kind of the immediate. But the job is the first step in kind of moving forward in my life. Getting back out there like I once was. Only 5 years ago, moving out of the house and just having a regular life and enjoying it and being fulfilled and everything that kind of comes along with that. So which may involve moving to a different city sometime soon as well. But yeah, those are
Okay, so you're a Harvard grad, and I always harp on that because that's just really impressive to me. Sorry, but I went to a nice school. It's one of the things that I always think of as one of my crowning achievements is that I somehow got into Cooper Union. That was really defining for me. So, what did you study at Harvard?
I majored in chemistry and did a minor in economics as well.
Steve, there's a lot of, unless I'm wrong, there's a lot of chemistry involved in what you do, isn't there?
On the hazmat side, yeah, there is. I'm not really on the hazmat yet, but a very general understanding in paramedicine and fire. You don't need to be that smart.
Okay. Do you need to be smart to be a chemist?
To be a chemist? No.
Why not?
And I'm speaking specifically to that field and also kind of the degree and the quality of your degree, because the folks that I went to school with, they're not chemists. They're now either professors or research scientists or doctors. But I like an internship at a local lab where they just do analytical chemistry, like test shit for leaching and stuff. It's a very much monkey work. You kind of, not to belittle it, but kind of follow a procedure.
Not to belittle it, but a fucking primate can.
It's not that different from a factory job. I feel like
of course.
You gotta know your stuff, but that's very baseline, and then you just kind of let the machines do the work, and but you can't be you gotta. But then if you're starting to do research, and that involves a little more out of the box thinking. So I guess it's got its ranges, but I think, you can't be a total bonehead. Just,
I get it.
what you're
I
saying.
get it. I get it. But so, okay. So there's overlap in the fact that Steve, you're or Renan, you went to school for, so you're specifically, you went to school for what?
Me,
Yeah.
I majored, like my degree is in chemistry.
Period. That's its own thing. I have a degree in chemistry.
Yeah, you mean, yeah, I mean, I suppose more of my focus was in organic chemistry, but I mean, that's not on my diploma.
Okay.
Yeah, like chemistry as opposed to physics, as opposed to economics, as opposed to
Okay.
sociology. Yeah.
So the three things that are important on your diploma are Renan Cretu, Harvard, and chemistry. That's sort of the story. That tells the story.
Yeah, I mean, it is magna cum laude, but that's only additional.
Okay. Well, that's okay. So we understand what we're dealing with, and now
Even without that, yeah, it's still.
yeah. No. I mean, you say it if you got it. So here's the question. Renan, didn't you end up going in the direction of a medical field?
Yeah, I've done some work kind of in that field or ancillary, but also for a time, a limited time about 5 years ago, was considering seriously pursuing medicine potentially, but not so long after, kind of realized it wasn't for me and deviated and haven't really looked back.
But what did you do while you were there?
So my last real job, which I left 3 years ago, I was working for 2 years at a big kind of parent healthcare company of the big hospitals in Boston, pretty well, Mass General. The company is called Partners, so it's kind of all the back end and everything that's kind of operational, as opposed to the doctors and staff of the hospitals themselves. So I was working in a research group. My job was pretty IT heavy because the whole company was undergoing a transition to a new electronic medical record system. So it ended up being unexpectedly IT heavy, which, has its plus and minuses. But I was really there initially with the intent to just kind of get my experience working with hospitals in the medical field as part of a resume to apply to medical school. And then, yeah, I mean, I've done some volunteering here and there in hospitals while I was an undergrad and a little bit after. So, I happen to be diabetic and I have a couple other medical conditions, so I'm no stranger to hospitals.
That environment,
hospital stay, that environment. Yeah, I have some good buddies who are residents now in medicine.
Okay.
Actually, one of them did. I don't know if you've heard, Steve, of something called Magen David Adom. It's the Israeli ambulance organization. They got a big red star, kind of like the Israeli Red Cross. So my good buddy, he happened to do, which I thought about doing as well, but I ended up doing research and said like a summer internship program with them where you basically receive your EMT training and whatnot. And then this buddy of mine, Elliot, he actually came back to Harvard and started a Harvard EMT club. So pretty cool, but much respect and admiration for the role.
Dope. So Steve, what's a day, a week, a month, a year look like in the course of your life? You're a fire paramedic. How does a fire paramedic differ from being just a fireman?
So the additional paramedic responsibility is that you're actually pushing medicines, maybe delivering a shock therapy. It's called advanced life support. So pretty much majority of things that an emergency room is going to do to stabilize a patient, keep them alive, we can do right there in the home or on scene of wherever they're at. In terms of a day, in a week, and month and year, it's pretty much just respond to those calls day in and day out. It does change. Every call is a little bit different, but at the same time, it isn't a little different. So a lot more training with the paramedic side. than just the fireman side. A lot more training, probably about depending on how motivated you are, 3 to 3.5 years from start to finish.
Okay. So what are typical types of, we all think firemen, we think two things. A house is burning down and everybody's outside wrapped in blankets, or there's a cat stuck up in a tree. Those are the two.
We're a decent sized city. We only get maybe 1 or 2 fires a month. That's just pretty standard nationwide. So on the EMS side, which is the paramedic and EMT, that's where all your calls, like probably about 80% of them are all on that side. So running anywhere from like diabetic problems, seizures, cardiac arrests, overdoses, psych issues, any traumatic injuries. That's the majority of what you're doing. And then a fire is kind of like a cherry on top where, once, twice a month, you get to go play in a burning building. Majority of the fire calls are like alarms. So an alarm for like an industrial complex will go off, a fire alarm or a water flow alarm. And you go check it out, see if there actually was a fire or something like that, reset the alarms, fix whatever may have happened. So on the fire side, there's not much work to be had, but that field, you're paid to be ready. Your job is to be ready for anything that you may come across, not really the work that you do.
So how do you determine so you have a close relationship with the police department, obviously, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you consider them brothers the way Army and Marines consider each other brothers? Is it that kind of dynamic?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that a good analogy?
Mm-hmm.
And then isn't there a military piece to your teaching as well?
To my high school, I teach EMT high school. And then the next level for college, I teach college paramedic. And then the State Fire Academy is probably about an hour away. I help out there. Anywhere from helping set up props, keeping fires lit. Eventually, I'll be actually helping teach some of the courses. So anything from like tech rescue stuff to hazmat to engine truck ops. There's quite a few courses that pretty much all of them are over there. So.
Okay. So the reason for the Q&A about what you guys were educated for is because, Renen's a Harvard graduated chemist. You're a guy who obviously put a lot of stock in academics as well. You're both guys. You're both, at the time of this recording, you're both single. So, ladies, please leave these guys alone. Seriously. No woman, no cry. But now you're both single. You're both in your, how old are you again, Steve?
33.
And Renen, you're
31.
31. So, right, you're in that age group. Different situations. Renen, you're with the folks right now. Steve, you've got your own place. You've got your own house. You have in common, you're both very physical. I mean, Steve, would you consider it a prerequisite for your job to be in good physical conditioning?
It's supposed to be. Yeah, definitely supposed to be, but it not in practice all the time.
I mean,
especially after you get on the job, there's quite a few guys who find a little corner to hide in and never do anything physical active. So
even though my understanding is that there are opportunities, like there's equipment available at the station for you to work out, and even incentives for you to work out, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And Renan, you guys both have in common that you have gym set up at your house, essentially, right? Renan, you have a pretty solid home gym.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of equipment do you have?
So it's a bench, I would call it a bench complex, I suppose, in that it has, in addition to the bench, and it's a short, like an easy barbell, not a full length Olympic, but it also has a like leg crunch on one end, and then it's also got a chest fly parts, and then I installed, so if I take the leg part out, there's kind of there's a bracket, and I kind of using the same kind of stuff that like a street sign is made of. I cut a length of it that can stick in it, and then put a hook on it. So, and with that, with resistance bands, I can do all kinds of a bunch of ab stuff and chest stuff, and then I use dumbbells for a number of exercises. So then sit-ups on a mat. Yeah, that's and yeah, I walk. Well, now I ruck for cardio. So that's my cardio. At the gym, I used to do the elliptical. But yeah.
Okay. So as far as your cardio and workout goes, you're kind of you're somewhere. You're not just full cardio. You're not like Mr. CrossFit. You're sort of like guy, like somewhere between like bro science, gym weights shit, and cardio, right? I mean, if we're being honest, right?
Yeah, if I understand the spectrum correctly, I think so. Yeah,
I think you understand the spectrum. You know? And Steve, what's your home workout situation, and basically what's your relationship to fitness, and what are your goals?
Mostly staying healthy is the biggest one. I do a lot of yoga, a little bit of Tai Chi. Most of my workouts now are either rucking or like a CrossFit kind of base kind of deal. I played college hockey, kind of a little bit into the pros. And so I was a goalie, so my knees, hips, back, ankles, they're all pretty sore. So mostly it's about prehab, stability, just kind of moving through those planes of motion rather than raw strength.
Got that. Sidebar, rucking, and big ups to Go Ruck. I just such a solid company. I appreciate you getting me into turning me on to the rucking thing, Steve. It's been revolutionary, and other guys in our community have kind of caught on. There's a really good blog that I forwarded to Renan. A guy's got a blog called A Brother Abroad, and military guy, African American, hence a brother abroad, and it's kind of incidental that he's a brother, but he's a guy, and he's a rucker, and he's a geek, and so he geeked fully on all things rucking, and really, really informative, and so we've been really getting into it. So that was great. You've actually done the Go Ruck challenge thing, right?
Yeah.
So just again, just since we're just bullshitting here, what's that look like? If Renan and I wanted to come hang out with you and go ruck, what would we be doing?
If we did the event, it's put on by either still functioning or ex-special operations guy. So mine was a Marine Force Recon guy. And I had been looking at going into Air Force Special Operations. I ended up trying out for an Air Force Reserve Special Operations team. So that was kind of like part of my training. And it's overnight. You don't have any watches. You don't have any phones. You can quit at any time if you want to. They tell you have to have a little like bag full of I think like $50 in case you need to bail out.
Sounds like rehab.
What's that?
It sounds like rehab. Kind of half kidding, but
I haven't been to rehab, so I don't know.
No,
and
I have.
So you've got your ruck, and you've got a little bit of water, and you maybe got like a little snack bar, and they Mine was in the city of Chicago, so they take you through downtown Chicago for roughly 12 hours. They have a map coursed out for you, and it's themed. So my theme was prohibition. So every little, about 45 minutes to an hour or so, they'll stop and they'll put you through some burpees, some push-ups, sprints with your pack. One thing we did, since it was prohibition theme, they took us to, it was also December 1st, by the way. They took us to the beach, and they had us run into the surf, probably about 10, 11 o'clock at night of Lake Michigan. And you had to completely submerge your pack, signaling like there was a boat drop off of booze, and you were running out, you were smuggling booze onto the beach. So you had to go run out, grab your pack, submerge it, sprint back in. The last person like did it again, ran back out again. So there was a sense of urgency. And then they, I was kind of preparing myself for some of these special operations classes and programs, and I'd seen enough and read enough and knew enough, talked to enough guys and know these little mind games they're playing. And they do play these little mind games where they're setting you up for failure. They're setting you up knowing full well that you have no chance of succeeding at this. They're setting you up knowing that their bickering is going to start. People are going to start bickering with each other. So like to illustrate an example of that, it was probably 3, 4 a.m. Again, you don't have a watch on your phone, so you have no idea what time it is. And one of the guys is like, hey, Cadre, we haven't ate yet. He's like, oh, yeah, that's all right. I'm going to go ahead and start eating. And I'm like, I knew as soon as we're going to start eating, it's going to get 30 seconds in, he's going to have us start exercising again, doing burpees. And so I'm like, well, I could eat this bar and get something in my system, or I could just suck it up for the rest of the go. And I'm like, I'm gonna eat it. And as I'm shoving it in my mouth, he's like, "Okay, get your packs on, start exercising." And so I'm sitting there on the beach in Chicago, still soaking wet, sand in like your boots and everything. I'm trying to shove this bar into my mouth as we're doing burpees, and so stuff like that. And it wasn't physically anything you can't do. But it was mentally taxing for everybody, and you could tell that,
That's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It sucks.
Right. But for people who are looking to grow by pushing in the direction of stuck and embracing the grind so that they can get better, fuck yeah, man. I'm into it.
Your last in the green room talked about that kind of living your truth, and this is not something that like I think Dennis and I came to the conclusion. I've always known this. The suck has always brought me out better, but I've always searched those things out to better myself. But there's been times where I haven't bettered myself, and because of that suck. So that's kind of like my truth is, where can I find the suck? Where can I get uncomfortable to eventually move into a better spot, into a better existence for me? So that one hit a topic with me. So
resonated. Yeah, that was actually Faisal and I have sort of deprecated in the green room right now, which tended to go a little bit heavier in the philosophical / spiritual direction. It was a little bit more Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, and a big fat ball. Whereas the Mental Dojo tries to be a little bit more user friendly and accessible to a guy on the street who's like, how do I man up? He doesn't get all this wacky hippie talk. And yeah, and I was talking about what's your truth and following your truth. And this is actually a natural extension of that. And the reason that you two guys were interesting to me is because you're both admirable guys. You're in your early 30s. You got one guy, like I said, who's a Harvard graduated chemist. You got another guy who's worked at least peripherally in the medical / tech world. You got another guy who's a firefighter, paramedic / high school and college teacher. Both guys who are interested, both guys who are sort of, you could almost say sort of pissy stoics. It's a good way to put it. Like, you're stoical, but you're just cunty about it. Like, yeah, I'm going to go through this process, but I'm going to piss and moan along the way, you know? And so, and I mean, I do the same thing, so it's relatable. I mean, I think there are rub-a-dub-dub 3 men in a tub over here. Okay. And it's the pissiness that's really at the heart of the conversation. That's the elephant in the room. It's the difference between being in a rut or being in a groove. Because for some people, you're like you're literally fucking paying to go out and do this. Like yes, please give me physical and psychological like problems to solve. I don't have enough suck in my life, so I'm going to go pay for some more. Right? That's a. There's a certain kind of person who wants to do that. It's like me. I'm a chili head. Why the fuck do I have to condition myself to eat a goddamn scorpion moruga or Carolina Reaper pepper? Like a ghost chili isn't hot enough. There's a thing there that's just like, all right, it's his hot, but can I get it to this hot? Can I get it to this hot? There's a little bit of a chasing euphoria thing going on there, and the euphoria is you set the bar just a little bit higher. You know it's going to suck, but you do it. Now, the fun part is there's some areas in which we're comfortable grinding and some areas in which we're uncomfortable grinding. So physically, Summerfield, I work with you. I've never had to tell you to work out. Since I've known you, I've never had to tell you to work out. In fact, you've identified that part of your dating criteria is like at the top of the list is like if a potential partner is into fitness and not just into like has fake boobs and looks good or whatever, like not that she's a trophy, but that she's or that you're like looking for a little CrossFit bunny, but that you're looking for someone who has similar values, and your values are real, like staying in good physical shape and leading a healthy lifestyle is a good thing for you. You're not trying to hear I'm overweight and I smoke and I drink. That's not your care how much she loves you. That's not something you're gonna do. It's you have criteria. And Renan, I know I've worked with you, and you've also, in the very beginning of all of this, I said, okay, we need to get your exercise under control to start doing this. And you were like, okay. And that's been the last thing I said. We never had to revisit that. It was like pushing it, it's like curling in space. You just push the thing and it just goes, no friction, just keeps on
say that prior to us working together, I had very much sporadic on-off periods, which, I mean, I don't know your life, Steve, but you strike me as someone that's always been just part of your identity. Just, yeah, I don't know. But, because I've definitely had periods of, just eating awful, drinking, all just sedentary. But yeah, I mean, this is a very solid stretch, and I can tell because of how far I've progressed in terms of weight and stuff. You know what I mean? Because I'd been here before, but it was years ago, and so now I'm getting back to kind of the strongest I've ever been. Prior to that, it was definitely very much on off, and then kind of get used to it. And I wasn't, that the honeymoon of being like, yeah, I'm doing this shit, kind of fades away, and as soon as it started to become routine, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this, but. Hasn't happened in the last 10 months.
And that's what I'm talking about. So I appreciate the nod to coaching as a way of keeping you accountable. But I mean, you're doing all the work. All I do is once a week saying, you're not fucking up, are you? And you're like, nope, I'm still doing it. I'm like, okay, good. See you next week. So now let's talk about the areas, and this is sort of the topic of the thing, right? So first we start out talking about how you were trained and what you do for a living. Then we talk about how when you want to, you can grind it out. You're not scared to grind. The rucking thing for anybody who's still like, what is rucking? You put a backpack on, you put weight in it, and then you walk around. And there's a whole there's all science to it, but bottom line is weight on your back and walk as has been perfected over the years by the military. And there are all these military standards. So, like the pack that Steve got me interested in, the Go Ruck, it's designed to like Molly standards. And Molly, Molle, I believe, is an acronym for, I think it's something like modular lightweight load bearing equipment or load carrying equipment. And it's a good system. So, but it started out here. Put a sack on your back and put a bunch of rocks in it and fucking walk around. And oh, by the way, yeah, this is pretty much going to be bad for your back and bad for your knees and bad for everything, because that's what the military, does to you, man. I got guys in the Army who are like, yeah, rucking sucks, dude. But with good equipment and done with a certain amount of discipline, it's a good way to get strong. It's a good way to beast it out. It's a good way to confront your limitations. And it's a good way to not only embrace the suck, but come away from it feeling like instead of being risk avoidant, you were risk seeking, you were risk taking, and you're like, yeah, I did it. So loving your job. All right, Steve, let's get sensitive. Here's where we start to take it up a notch. Steve, do you love your job?
I love my job. But not the culture.
Okay, and that is a commonality between you and Renan. Renan, I don't think you loved the job you were doing, but I also don't think in getting back into the work world, it's the job that you're as fearful of.
It's both. I mean, the culture, yeah, definitely, but also what I was doing, and even, yeah, they're problematic in different ways is all I would say.
Okay, let's start with Steve. I'm going to remind you this is going public, so say whatever you want, but I'm not editing it. So speak your truth, but remember, don't say anything that you're going to regret later. But don't not say it either. I want good content. So if you want to get shit, if you want to get messy, let's go. Tell me the good, bad, and the ugly. Give us a window into that culture. Is it Chicago PD? Is it just or Chicago Fire? Is it Chicago FD? Is it just like on TV?
If you like the show, drama.
Yeah.
I won't name the name of my department, and I won't name. But we have a certain acronym for our department, and there is that same acronym has a sorority acronym for it. So
okay, I got it.
You think it's a brotherhood, and in some ways it is. I do have brothers on the department that if I needed something, they would be there. But they're 5 guys, and it's much more a sorority, and it's still very much like high school. And I didn't think it. I didn't come in thinking it was going to be that way. I thought maybe 1 or 2 guys would be a problem. But you're with these guys for the next 20 to 25 years. You're supposed to be that. You get hired typically in this field, and you're there for 20, 25 years until you can pension out. And that makes for a very rough culture when something goes wrong. And in my case, when several things go wrong and compound on each other. So you're taking my department's 120 guys. So. Not only does if one person finds out about it, 10 people find out about it, then the whole department finds out about it. And that certainly plays its game of telephone really quickly with guys who have a very good imagination, who are in that fraternity / sorority setting. It gets ugly. It can get ugly.
So I know that you're speaking in generals, and I appreciate that you're speaking in loose terms and abstracts, nothing specific. But if I want to look for a little bit more relatability and peel back another layer of the onion, make me feel your pain.
So there's been multiple instances of guys dating my exes, which again, this is a very tight knit community, so that's kind of problematic. And this is not just like, hey, this is your ex from 10 years ago. This is your ex from that you dated for 4 years, a couple months ago. And those are guys that were supposed to be like, brother. They literally said in my face, "I would never do that to you. You're my brother. We went to fire academy together," which is. It's not like anywhere near the military basic, but it's structured similarly. So you have a common shared experience together, and you think that this guy's supposed to be your brother, and here he is literally sitting here to your face, stabbing you in the back, and you think that another brother would have your back, but he doesn't. You think another one would have your back, but he doesn't. And you find out in those instances who really is your brother, and who really is on your side. And there is it's very cultural, like the popular clique group. Well, they don't even like each other. They all hate each other. They talk shit about each other behind their back, but they hang out with each other and all that stuff. And it gets really muddy. The water gets really muddy quick, and you're like, okay, how do I work another 23 years with this guy that I clearly don't trust, that clearly has lied to my face, and done the exact opposite of what he said. Not only that, you're going to fall under his chain of command, or vice versa. He's going to fall under your chain of command. In instances where you're going to be putting other guys or yourself or each other in burning buildings that can go up quick, in hazmat situations that can be very bad, in EMS calls that we've had line of duty. We've had 9 line of duty deaths in our department history. One was pretty recent. So, the risk is small, but it is there. And there's a lot of problems that grow exponentially quickly. And you live with each other. So it's not just like a 9 to 5 and you can go find somewhere to do your work and hide. You live with each other for 24 hours, sometimes 48 hours. You sleep right next to each other. I've seen multiple guys naked. That's kind of my criteria for being friends. We're how close can we get? And some of those guys that we are close, those are the guys that you can rely on. Usually shared experiences, but then again, I tell you, shared experiences with some guys also has led to betrayal. So
it does, and you're not just a fire paramedic, but a hockey player. And I remember you once describing to me that the difference between a hockey player and somebody that plays hockey is if they can't question your sexuality, you're not a hockey player. You're just a guy who plays hockey. Like if they're not 100% sure if you're gay or not, with guys running around slapping each other in the dicks and just doing weird, like fucking totally like macho fruity shit.
Yeah, it's bizarre, but it's what I've noticed. If you're not in the shower with each other and like making jokes, you don't really fit in. And it's the same thing on the fire department. And
that furthers the idea of brotherhood, because you're literally naked before each other as brothers, and you're sending yourself, which is unconditional acceptance and the allowance of vulnerability and trust. And then there's going into these completely fucking fire powder keg situations. Even literally, you're going into these nutty, high risk emergency situations, and that fraternity needs to be really tight. And you're describing a situation in which there's a lot of backbiting and jockeying for status and just kind of bullshit. So, do you think that would be the case if women weren't involved, or do you think the woman thing is really the kind of the forbidden fruit that makes the brothers like kind of backstab each other?
No, I think the women makes it really quick and easy. It's a example that, once some guys get that sniff, that's it. That's it. Right? But I think a lot of those guys that do some of those things, they're just not really quality men. They have no standard for what they live by. They talk behind everybody else's back negatively, and they'll never say anything to each other's face. Things that I like to think that I live by, although it's not always been. I've screwed up. I haven't lived that way, but one of code for me is never to complain, never to bitch openly. Maybe inside my head I am. To you I am, but certainly in front of my students or people I work with, that you don't complain openly. Another thing, to me, is you don't talk about someone behind their back that you wouldn't say to their face.
Yep.
That I'm sure I've done it before, but as a long enough time frame that define me. And yeah, that can. If I say something about you, I'll say it to your face, which is also like why I'm an individual on the apartment rather than just part of the group. Because I won't talk shit behind people's back.
Right, and so that's a decision. You're basically saying I'm not going to be one of the mean girls.
Yeah.
And so that can be isolating, and that can breed distrust in itself, because it can seem judgmental for you to pull away from the reindeer games, right?
Yeah.
I have an idea for how I'm going to loop Renen's story into this, but I want to get to the next point in the process of talking with you about this. So you went to school. It was kind of your dream job in a way. It was very interesting for you to be part of a brotherhood.
Yeah, I went to ISU for public health, and I realized, that was fine, but like what guy doesn't want to do something, either military, police, fire, who at least has that thought of like doing something in the field, So
RuPaul.
I know who it is, but.
Oh, okay. You said what guy doesn't? Caitlyn Jenner.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, well, so that's what, and I really, so I had like this inkling, and I ended up following it and see how far it took me. So yeah.
Do you feel betrayed?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and worse so that it's multiple people. It's not just one.
Yeah, you feel betrayed by your brotherhood.
Yeah.
Ostracized.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ostracized and betrayed. If bro code isn't in the freaking fire department, police department fraternity, then who's holding that down? Like, it seems like that's where it's really supposed to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that where all the macho is? Like, isn't that where the real men are men and women are women? Isn't that the idea?
It's made me second guess some of the things that we think are masculine qualities and traits. Again, I talked to you. This is not my first day. I didn't just come to you with a problem. I've been very insightful. My background was psychology. I worked as an emergency crisis intervention, so I was a emergency psychologist for suicidal, homicidal people. I've read a lot of masculine development, like what makes a man, what are the codes that we live by, and that really had me second guessing all those things. So like brotherhood, why evolutionary psychology. Why do we have that where women don't have that, that innate drive to feel like they're part of the brotherhood? And that's potentially because we were out in the sticks with each other and had to rely on each other. Otherwise we died, or had the potential of being, eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or something like that. And so here are these guys that are actually displaying a lot of feminine qualities within a group. And, so that had me second guessing some of those things. And then I really started thinking about some of those guys who are on my side and who are guys that I either look up to or I identify with. And they are some of the ones that have similar qualities and traits and beliefs as I do. And they won't, they don't partake in the talking behind other people's back. They don't complain as much.
But they don't make up. They're counterculture, which is ironic.
They're not the masses. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Which brings me to the burning question. And I'm keeping an eye on the sands of time here. So the burning question is, if you don't love your culture and you feel betrayed, which sounds more attractive to you? To recognize that it's a job, say, fine, I love my job, except that you were romantic and ultimately disillusioned about what the brotherhood was going to be. Pull away, be something of an isolationist, and find a brotherhood that satisfies those needs outside of your professional community, for instance, a Christian group or whatever you're into. That's A. Or B is saying, no, I actually really want my work culture to be consistent with, I want to love my work culture as much as I love my work job. Which, like, for me, I have to admit, I'm blessed because, like, I'm not being paid for what I'm doing right now, for example. Maybe this will have some utility down the line as promotional material, but the reality is, I had my day ended at 4:00 today, and yet here it is at 5:09 in San Diego, and I'm doing this because I love my job and I love the culture. I love you guys, man. I love all my guys. So, of the A and B of that dichotomy there, which one is more the direction that you want for your future?
The correct answer for me is a little bit of both. I can explain that, but what I've chosen to do is more toward the first one, A, and realize I had some preconceived notions. I wasn't really searching for a brotherhood. It's not why I came into this field. At hockey, I was a goalie. I was always on my own. So
Okay.
I've been very comfortable, and almost that's like my baseline operating system is to function on my own. So I'm fine with that. I just had these preconceived notions. I believed what was being said to me, and I was wrong. And actually, it's not now like nice. I see the light, and it's like, oh, okay, now I understand how things are. At that same time, this is where I kind of combine the two. The second option, it's like, I'm teaching high school and college kids who are looking to get my job and to work with me. I have them at age 18 on up to 30. And it's like, not only am I teaching them the content, I'm also bringing them into the field and their work ethic, and they're instilling in them, hopefully instilling them some qualities, but also am I treating them like a brother? And sometimes, majority of times, yes, but sometimes it hasn't been the case. So it is a way of like recognizing what it is. And at the same time, I have an ability to at least affect it by on how I act.
What a mature answer. So what I'm hearing you say is that you accept the limitations of your existing culture, but you love your job and you're going to continue to stay at least tangentially related to it. You're also saying that you're not going to play their reindeer games. You're fine being the lonesome kicker.
Yeah.
And you're you're looking at you believe the children are our future, and so your idea is, instead of sitting around pissing and moaning about how you've been disillusioned by what you thought was going to be this, you know, morally and ethically bulletproof uh, fraternal culture, you're instead saying, well, I'm going to give what I would receive. So I was looking for that. I didn't get it, but in a position of authority, which an educator is, I'll motivate students and train them that, in fact, that can exist, and continue to teach by both modeling and speaking to a culture with higher moral and ethical standards, as a way of sort of influencing the direction that culture is going. I mean, is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, that sounds. I mean, it is. It does split the difference. It's not Boolean. It's not either or, but it's workable and it makes sense, and it's frankly diplomatic. It's a negotiation. So I like that. Now, Renan, you want to like your job and not hate it, and yet you are having a problem right now. This is, again, I have to stress, this is a Harvard grad who struggles to fill out a resume and their cover letter. We have a simple assignment. You have to put out, right now, you have to put out 5 resumes a week, 1 a day. Wake up, find a job, wake up, fill out a resume for it, create a cover letter for it, hit send, and you're done for the day. In theory, how long should that process take?
Asking me?
Yes.
I mean,
Mechanically, in terms of a time investment, if there were no emotion involved, how long should that mechanically take?
me, I don't know. I mean, a few hours a day.
Okay.
I'm very, I'm very.
Dot your I's and cross your T's, yeah. You have nothing but time, am I wrong?
No.
I mean, you were quarantined before quarantine was cool. So it's
Yeah,
not like
right. OG, OQ.
that's what I'm saying. OQ. So where are you getting stuck? Why is this Herculean challenge for you to do these things?
I mean, if I knew the answer, that I mean, I really knew, I think I would be in this situation. But when I'm just thinking about it now, and maybe there's more truth to what Matt Belmondi was saying last night, is that just because I'm just not even not excited, just so little looking forward to that future state, which, I like the idea of having a job and having money to do stuff, but honestly, I know part of it is that things right now are probably they're too comfortable for me, and my folks aren't going to kick me out, and so I'm in this, so I need to make it happen on my own. And It's like, someone might say, don't you have any dignity, dude? Like, you live with your fucking parents, you're 31, you went to Harvard. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, I hear you. I might think that about, but like, I'm not really trying to impress anybody. Like, if someone like, I should be trying to impress myself, I guess, right? But I don't know. I don't have that. Maybe it is a little bit of a lack of dignity. I mean, I don't rest on my laurels, but I do feel like I've just been disappointed already with so much of the working world. And I don't feel entitled, because I think in some regard, though, I got this idea that it should be easier to do less, but at the same time, like, I'm not willing to work to figure out what that is. So I don't know, maybe I'm just lazy.
You're not lazy. You're absolutely not lazy. You're a grinder. I said that at the beginning of the call.
I know, there's nothing that's really pulling me. You know what I mean? And it's not like, I need to have a new Porsche Boxster. I need to have it. How the fuck am I going to get it? You got to get a job. I don't have any carrot like that. At least that's how I frame it to myself, I mean, there's also I'm doing better now, but there's been an underlying depression for the last few years, and a big component of it is existential as well as biological. And part of that is just, and I don't really think about it much these days because I kind of am able to focus more on the present. But as far as kind of translating like a longer term goal into why I need to get these applications out, so that leads to B, so leads to C, so on and so forth, is for a while I just was feeling really not hopeful, hopeless even, and just not looking forward to feeling like the future, not for me, but in future, like what's the big deal about what the future of life holds? You get you get a girlfriend, you get married, you get the house. That's what I was reducing it to. And I'm not saying I've gone beyond that, and seen all the gifts and pleasures that life holds. But so I think, at least to me, that's how it seems like, because that's how my logic works is if I want that, it would drive this and so on and so forth. And then, I'd be employed right now. Sometimes I try to think if I didn't have, God forbid, I don't know, if I didn't have parents, if I was a street kid, what would I do? I don't know. And let's say I didn't have other friends and people who cared about me. I don't know. Maybe it's impossible my whole psyche would be different.
It would be, trust me, because I was that person.
Yeah. So I can't really imagine that.
Well, let me explain it to you. Necessity is the mother of invention. So when you've been, when you're born in a crossfire hurricane, so to speak, you just hit the ground running. And you just keep on running. And it's just constantly like shit burning behind you. And just every time you manage to get to a checkpoint and you're still alive, you're like, wow, I'm still here. And you're just more tired than other people your age. And you learn a lot more about how things work. You're disappointed more easily, or sorry, not disappointed. Yes, disappointed, but you find out there's no Santa Claus a lot sooner, and it doesn't stop there. You lose your innocence. Your sexual innocence is lost early. Your faith in your immediate family is lost early. Your faith in the family structure. There can be a lot, and a lot of disappointment. And if you manage not to kill yourself, because that's pretty sad. And when you're young, your hormones, man, they play mind games with you. And then add, daddy didn't love me chicks who are here to help. Which, that's a whole nother topic for another mental dojo. But the good news is how to survive. The not so good news is when you finally do get a break, you just want to hide. When I've had the opportunity to hide, to hold myself up and be in a situation like the one you're currently in, I've done it. But what was my refuge quickly became my, like as you always hear me say, like a jail cell with an open door. Like it's open, but you feel trapped, and you either don't want to leave or you can't leave, and you kind of outstay your welcome. There's a point at which you kind of got to go, and you don't want to go back out there because you don't think of risk taking as something. Like risk seeking is not interesting for you. Risk avoidance is interesting for you because everything in your world is a goddamn risk. And stakes are always high, and they always tend to hurt your feelings, and hurt in other ways too. So your conundrum, Steve's conundrum is he doesn't necessarily want a better job, but he wants his ethical, moral, and spiritual ideals to be in alignment in his personal life and in his professional life, tall order, but if we're trying to achieve an optimal existence, that's something that we're working toward here. I mean, not to brag, but I've done it. And I don't make a ton of money, but I pay my bills and my business is growing. And I've got a lot of problems that I solve within the course of being a father, a partner to Celia, a coach, a business owner, whatever. But they're solvable problems. I'm not suffering in any way. I've finished with that. It's all gravy from here. And Steve kind of has it right. I mean, in the sense that if you love your job, stay there. And if you don't love the culture, then draw a line between what you expect from your job and what you expect from a culture. And if your job culture isn't giving you what you expect, then find a culture that gives you that. It's kind of like being polygamous and saying, I've got the one that I'm really emotionally intimate with, and then I've got the one that I can just freaking have up against the wall monkey sex with. And since I can't have them both in the same person, I'll just kind of flip flop. And if they're cool with it, I'm cool with it. There go my religious people. But so that's kind of how Steve's playing it. In your case, Renan, what job? Okay, let's put it this way. Do you think it's possible for you to find both a job that you love and a culture that you love?
No, neither. I think at most one that I like and one that I like. So, I mean, that's where that would be great.
Let me ask this: what would your requirements of a job be for you to say, I don't just like it, I love it?
That's the thing. I mean, I'm not even sure I could dream up such a thing.
I'm not asking for you to design the job. I'm not asking for you to give me a physical look at what the job is. Oh, I'd be an airline, flight attendant.
Yeah. How would it make me feel, I guess?
Or what would you be giving and what would you be receiving that made you say, God, I love this job. This is what I'm able to offer, and that makes me happy. And this is what I'm able to receive, which also makes me happy.
I mean, I definitely have. I think it's maybe a vain and it's kind of immature. Some of these things I realize are very idealistic. I like to help people. That's always a great bonus if whatever I'm doing is somehow helping people. But I guess, I mean, right now I care more about making money. Now, if it I mean, not that it's an either or, but I care more about making money. See, I've got this hang up, that I've had for a long time about, and it's not personal, but I want to. It's weird. I want to, but I've also kind of given up on it, and maybe there it is. But when I was younger, I had more of this desire. I wanted to be somebody, and what is that?
That's your ego. That's your ego.
Yes, sure. That's my ego. You know what I mean? Yeah. I want, I mean, it sounds,
I'm not judging you.
No. I know. I'm hearing myself say it. And I'm like, someone said this to me. I like praise. I got used to it when I was younger in secondary and in high school. I think I felt I got a lot of praise. Yeah. And then that dropped off because in college, especially at Harvard, you're just another dumb shit. So you don't, in the class, it's just a different environment. You don't have people doting on you like teachers and whatnot. And, I took to that. I wasn't a teacher's pet, but it felt good. And people, I think sometimes a lot of people were jealous, and that felt good too. It's nice to be felt jealous of, I think. And, I'm not, it's not the, I mean, it's that external validation.
And isn't that, by the way, the top, Steve, right? I mean, isn't that we're always talking about is freaking validation? You're hearing it, right? It's so funny when it's not you talking. You hear another guy talking. It's so freaking obvious. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
So just before he even goes on, because we're getting close to time, Steve, tell me, because I have a direction, I have a way that I want to stick the landing on this mental dojo. Um, if you had, based on what you're hearing from Renan, if you had to give him advice, like if I were going to chaperone you sort of co-coaching Renan, for starters, I mean, especially because of your psych background, um, if you had to play guidance counselor with him, how would you troubleshoot the obstacles that he's presenting as excuses for why he can't have what he wants? And y'all can just talk to each other, by the way. You not cut me out as the middleman. Like, I just want to watch a session.
I could logically explain, like, why there are reasons for those, or why I think there are reasons for those things, because that's exactly how I felt. Probably around 21, and then it came back maybe 25, and there's still times where I feel almost exactly the same way, where it's kind of a little bit of what's the point of all this? What's the point of a job? Where is this all heading? And then because of those things, like the lack of motivation to do those said things, I guess the best thing I can say is what I know is myself. And I love sitting at home and not working. One of the best things about my job is I work one day and I have 2 days off. So I fill it with something else so that I stay busy, even though I'm like, dude, I do not want to go to work today. But, one is like, I may hate doing the work, but at the end of the day, it's been worthwhile. And two, there is some value in the work, but at the same time, like, it allows me to do all these other things outside of work. So like, I like to travel, I like eating food, whiskey, wine, cigars. Like, I like living a decent lifestyle. And even though, I don't want to go to start high school again on Monday, I really don't want to go to high school on Monday. That's going to allow me to take flight lessons, and which is something that, like you said, you wanted to be somebody. I wanted to be Maverick when I was a little kid. I wanted to be Maverick from Top Gun. And then, going through that, I wanted to be a pararescueman, which is the Air Force Special Operations, because I thought that would give me some, and subconsciously would give me some validation and some meaning. But, so that allows me to live the life that I've always dreamed of. I get to play all those roles. I get to play teacher role, firefighter role, paramedic role. I get to play the role of being a pilot, even though not one of those things is like my one thing. My one thing is my life and everything in it. Like, I'm always going to be pushing until the day I die and learning and doing something that contributes to my life, even though none of those define me as who I am. Maybe that helps you. Maybe you feel the same way. I'm not, maybe you don't. I know that realization has really helped me, is like, okay, this job isn't defining me, but it helps me build a bigger picture. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
no, definitely.
Cool to hear that you've, at least at the high level, kind of felt these same kind of feelings, which I was a little bit. Well, I mean, I don't know the whole story, but did you want to go into your field from a young age? I thought I understood that, but maybe you came around later.
I think it's a combination. You know what? So a lot of people think like our parents screw us up, and that's not. Well, they kind of do, but I don't think they really screw you up. It's just that you're a kid and you can't deal with what's the real world, so you deal with it as a kid. So now you start off at age 1 dealing with it as a kid, whatever happens, and you just keep building on that and building on that and building on that. And I come from the suburbs of Chicago, which the suburbs of Chicago, no one does anything interesting. No one does. The only time they move away is to go to college, some college, in the state, and then they come back and they work for their dad, or they do the exact same job that their dad did. They get married, they have kids, they look forward to Friday night, and they have their 6-pack of Busch Light and they go watch the Sox game.
Yeah, the town grew up. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Now,
to
yeah, the
find,
town where I'm from, there's a lot of folks. I mean, I consider myself, kind of with a foot in that circle as well. So I know the mentality.
yeah. Well, there ain't nothing wrong with that, but
Mm.
that is the suburbia. That's who I was, and I realized that right around 21, I was like, I hate this about myself. Like, I had all these goals and dreams and visions, and I'm not anywhere near. I'm not anywhere near those things, and that brought on a whole slew of problems. Like, how do I take that first step? How do I take the next step? What happens if I fail? But that was the motivating factor. Was like, okay, I grew up watching, again, Top Gun, Predator, every Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and he was a total badass. And I'm like, I am not that, and that's what I wanted to be, something along those lines. And that's where my motivation came from, and kind of proving it to myself, because at the end of the day, that's really all that matters, proving it to yourself, or doing something for yourself. And now, for me, like climbing mountains, learning another language, traveling to Europe, that's kind of my thing. And I still have those questions of like, is it worth it? Am I still just doing this for somebody else so I can post a picture on Facebook? So I still think deeply about everything that I'm still doing. It's not like I found the answer and then everything was perfect. Like it's not that at all. But moving in a different direction than doing nothing, Like I've certainly been where you're at, for sure.
Okay, so as a way of kind of putting a wrapper on this whole thing, we started by talking about loving your job. Steve said he loves his job, doesn't love his culture. So far, working in coaching, what about coaching has helped you move the chains in the direction of solving the problem of resentment and embracing positivity and gaining motivation and encouragement?
It's just overall, the whole thing has like brought me back to myself. Like I've been in these frames of mind before, and I don't know how I got there or how I stumbled upon them. But for 6 months things would go really well, and like to kind of hit on, like you said, a wrapper for all this. It's like my job isn't my job. My job is my life. So, in my time, that's my job. So
Right.
whatever fits into my job, my life, and my time. That allows me to be kind of like an entrepreneur for myself and for my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I've come back to that, where I got away from that, for looking back now, like for 4 years. I was away from that, and that like there was a disconnect between who I was and who I thought I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So
You're getting back to being the CEO of the business of being the guy who runs your life,
yeah,
and recognizing that your personal brand is important to you and it has a lot to do with what you do for a living, and that you're not going to bend to accommodate the, the whatever the logo is that your job has on it. You're going to make sure that the job is a good wallpaper or backdrop for the narrative that is the story of your life. And that perspective shift and regular coaching to keep you accountable on actionable items, as well as having a place to blow off steam when you're being a reluctant stoic. That's been a key component so far. Is that accurate?
yep, definitely.
And Renan, moving to close the session here, and the conversation. Similarly, you're at a different place in your in your process. in terms of your relation to your life and your job, but I think it's pretty obvious what you and Steve have in common. There's a lot of overlap. So similarly, I'm going to ask you, given that you've started in a different place, you were here, and now you're here, and you're still grinding in the direction of where you're going. How has coaching helped you so far, and how do you, because this is going to be your message to the general audience, aside from just sharing your stories, and there's just so much solid gold in that because it's just relatable. Like, you've already given the content, but just to make it, what would you share to a generic audience of guys, that is a thumbs up to the coaching process in terms of how it's gotten you to where you are and how it's got you hopeful about where you're going? Keyword hopeful. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess in one dimension, there's two parts. There's, frankly, there's the validation I receive from you, Dennis, and from other brothers, and then there's the ability that I'm cultivating to validate myself and frankly believe it on my own. So when I fly on my own, I'm able to validate for myself. I think another big part, at least in terms of moving forward at whatever pace I am, and I guess this is what it means just to be, well, it is, yeah, to be more present is just kind of not getting so overwhelmed by kind of the long-term, letting go a little bit of some of these maybe idealistic expectations, or not necessarily letting go of them, but putting them on the back burner a little bit and focusing more on the day-to-day through the programming, and then just kind of the things that I have to do are, as a result, they're less overwhelming. I get overwhelmed easily. They just seem less daunting, and I'd like to be able to kind of take life less seriously. I've never really been someone who doesn't good at that. I kind of always want to. Not that it's something not to be taken seriously, but yeah. And I mean, me personally, just before I moved home about a year ago and then started working with you shortly after, I was very lonely all the time. And then just it just begat more loneliness. I wasn't going out there and socializing and just, spending a lot of time on my own and not always necessarily realizing and so I know part of, wherever I am now, as opposed to, say, a year ago, is getting outside my own head, and having more interactions and having outside perspectives and mirrors to force me to see things differently for the better.
Okay. So, in Steve's case, coaching has been revelatory because it's been accountability together with someone to bounce ideas off of that doesn't think he's absolutely insane, and who really just vibes with the stuff he's talking about and validates him as a dude. And in your case, similarly, validation is clutch. Also, accountability and helping you to move toward being more present and using validation as a sort of a neutral place to put your mind, sort of park your brain, rather than having it idle hot and constantly be ruminating, which is exhausting and makes you not want to fucking get out of bed. All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up. This has been a sick little conversation. Did you guys enjoy this? Because I did.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. We went a little long. This is something like an hour and a half, but fuck it, it is what it is. I'm going to put it out there. Maybe there's somebody out there drawing a warm bath, ready to slit their wrist because they hate their fucking job or they hate the culture that they live in. And maybe this hour and a half will be the difference between them reaching out to a coach or saying screw it all and Thelma and Louising it off a freaking bridge. So I want to thank you for participating in the chat. I'm going to shut her down now and we'll talk for a couple of seconds off camera before we head out. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Later, the Mental Dojo. Well, guys, thanks for stopping by. It's time to shut down the Mental Dojo, throw the chains on the doors, lock the padlock, and get the hell out of here. But before I do that, would you do me a favor and hit like? I would appreciate that. And also, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, if you're feeling what I'm doing here, if you're smelling what I'm stepping in, go ahead and hit subscribe so that we can do this again, because the man cave just isn't the same when you're not here, man. And I mean that. Thanks for coming by. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.